Hello everyone, Metallian Magic here, and today I'm going to be doing something kind of fun. This isn't something that's going to be super strategically relevant to too many people out there, as I don't think many people are going to be building sealed decks out of what you see in front of you, although, who knows, maybe this video will inspire some of you out there to go out and buy some packs from these sets to try out this wacky format. I'm going to explain briefly why I'm doing this. I competed recently in a Grand Prix trial for Grand Prix Providence 2015, which is happening on June 20th and 21st in Providence, Rhode Island, and I actually won the tournament. And so I have a couple buys to start off the tournament, two buys for rounds 1 and 2, which is super sweet, but I also got to choose a variety of packs as part of my my first place prize in that tournament. And instead of choosing just a sealed box or packs from one set, I wanted to choose a variety. A, because I might want to do some sort of wacky drafts with friends or whatever. I might want to just kind of save some of these for future videos. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with all these packs yet, as I have multiple packs from some of the sets you see in front of you. But I decided to get at least one pack from these 6 sets. And so in front of you, you see a Core Set 2013 pack, a Return to Ravnica pack, a Conspiracy pack, a Khans of Tarkir pack, a Dragons of Tarkir pack, and a Modern Masters 2015 edition pack. So what I decided to do, and this is obviously just something that's sort of a card synergy and sort of card evaluation exercise. Obviously, 2013 Ravnica Conspiracy, Khans, Dragons, Modern Masters sealed is not a real thing in the competitive sense, but I'm going to open these 6 packs for fun. But then after opening them, I'm going to take a little break here, and when I come back, and through the magic of video editing, you guys will just see it, mere moments after the packs are open. I'm going to build a sealed deck, 40 card sealed deck out of these packs and basic lands, and just kind of walk through what deck I would build if I was playing in some sort of strange, wacky format where you build a sealed deck using a pack from each of these sets, but only one pack per set. So I'm going to go in chronological order. So I'm going to open the M13 pack first. In this pack we have Disentomb, Guardians of Akrasa. Sorry, that's not a card that I've seen before, so, or maybe I have, the art looks familiar, but Akrasa is the way to pronounce that. Negate, an old standby, Kindled Fury, Divine Favor, Sentinel Spider, it's a cool card, so that's pretty good. Elvish Visionary, so we've got some good green cards here. Crater Eyes, Essence Scatter, some counter spells in this pack too. Dragon Hatchling. Our first uncommon is Chronometon, that's an interesting card. Rewind, third counter spell in the pack, wow. And Primal Clay, that can do a lot of different things. And our rare or mythic, Sarah Avenger, nice. That's a really cool card. Sarah Avenger is a 3/3 for white. It's an angel. It says you can't cast Sarah Avenger during the first, second, or third turns of the game, and it has flying and vigilance. So the deal here being you get an undercosted creature. It's a 3/3 with flying and vigilance, but you can't cast it until the 4th turn. So normally a 2-drop you can cast on turn 2. This one has a clause that doesn't allow you to cast it until turn 4, but this allows you to say cast it on turn 4 and leave mana up for a Path to Exile, or or if we're talking about Modern. But it's the type of card that allows you to sort of play it and then use your mana to do other things on turns 4, 5, 6, whatever. So it's a 2-drop that is not a bad late game top deck. It's an interesting card, interesting design. We have a foil. We have a thing card, like a add kind of thing. We have a planes, and we do not have a foil. Okay, so that was the M13 pack. Next, we're going to open up Return to Ravnica. This is a set that hasn't been out of standard for that long. This rotated when Khans of Tarkir came out, and so it hasn't even been a full year that this set has been out of standard. But there are some cool cards in this set that would be sweet to open here. Abrupt Decay being chief among them right now, I think, in my opinion. So we have Electrickery, good sideboard card here. Crosstown Courier, Centaur Healer, Chemister's Trick, Downsize, Explosive Impact, Stonefair Crocodile, Dagger Drome Imp, Doorkeeper. Our first uncommon is Dark Revenant. Cool. Okay. Selesnya Charm. Definitely a cool card that saw a lot of play in Standard when it was Standard legal. Nice. And Bizarre Krovod. Or Krovod. However you pronounce that. Sort of sounds Russian. We have a multicolored 5/5. Oh, nice. Niv-Mizzet Draco Genius. So this is a mythic. This is... if our steel deck build ends up being blue-red, or you know, more than 2 color, this will probably be in there, but his mana cost is pretty restrictive. It's 2 blue, red, 5/5, flying. Whenever Niv-Mizzet Draco Genius or Draco Genius deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. You can pay blue and red, and he deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So you pay 2 mana, and you basically get to deal 1 damage to a target and draw a card if you choose. Kind of a reworked version of Niv-Mizzet the Firemind in the original Ravnica block, which was recently reprinted in Modern Masters 2015 edition. Cool. And we have an ad here, and a mountain. Oh, we have a foil common. We have a foil Paralyzing Grasp. And that's cool. That's sort of, you know, a card like Narcolepsy, or in that vein where, you know, some of these cards have slightly different ways of playing out, like Narcolepsy is a little different, but this is one of those sort of blue auras that taps a creature down and keeps it tapped down, or keeps it from really doing much. And that's become sort of a staple in blue recently. So, ooh. Open this pack a little more carefully. So far, I'm not sure what direction I want to go. I mean, we have 4 more packs, and like I said, this is sort of a wacky card evaluation and skill of deck building exercise, because these sets are all, you know, other than Khans and Dragons, they're all from either different blocks, or, you know, one's a core set, one's from Return to Ravnica block. Conspiracy was kind of a wacky multiplayer draft format. You've got this modern compilation set. You've got, you know, 2 things, the 2 large sets in Khans block. So this is not a format that I would expect would yield a lot of synergy. But we'll see. You know, so some strange things can happen, and that's part of what this exercise is about. So our Conspiracy pack has Johnny's Sunstriker, Crookclaw Transmuter, Mana Geyser, Pitchburn Devils, Charging Rhino, Liliana's Spectre, Assassinate, nice. Removal is important and sealed, as it is in you know, many formats, draft and constructed as well. So nice to see an Assassinate as a possible thing that we could play if we go black. Provoke, Stasis Cell, another one of those kind of blue taps a creature down type effects. Our first uncommon is Wind Dancer, and then Volcanic Fallout. Nice. Nice sweeper. Or sort of sweeper. I mean, it sweeps small creatures. Quicksand. And we have a Grenzo, Dungeon Warden. Cool. This is a guy that I know a lot of people like in Tiny Leaders. He's a very cool design. He's a Goblin Rogue, 2/2 for X, black-red. Grenzo Dungeon Warden enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 2 colorless to put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature card with power less than or equal to Grenzo's power, put it onto the battlefield. This obviously works pretty well with Scry, and there's some other effects that this works with as well. We have a foil Screaming Seahawk, a common bird. The beak looks really cool in foil form here. Nice. And our Conspiracy card, which is sort of not important to this exercise, but just for the sake of completing the pack here, it's Sentinel Dispatch. And we have a Construct, which goes with that Conspiracy, so that's neat. Nice. So there's some different directions we could go thus far. Nothing jumps out to me yet as immediately the absolute correct way to go, but we'll see. Moving on to our Khans pack here, we have Hooting Mandrills, Salt Road Patrol, Act of Treason, a Woolly Loxodon, a Debilitating Injury, a Force Wave. We've gotten some good green and black cards, like you know, we had that Spider in M13. We've got now like the Loxodon, you know, multiple removal spells, Assassinate, Debilitating Injury. We have Mandrills, so green-black is one way we could lean, but we do have some good blue stuff as well. Force Away, Teamer Banner, Treasure Cruise, cool. Windscarred Crag, Snowhorn Rider. Our first uncommon is Armament Core, then Take Up Arms, and then Windstorm. And we have a rare. We have a Teamer Ascendancy. So this is green, blue, red. Enchantment, creatures you control have haste. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. And we have a Swamp and an Add card. Okay, cool. And now our Dragons of Tarkir pack. So we've opened a couple of foils and a mythic so far. We haven't opened up anything that's worth a ton of value financially in these 4 packs, but this exercise, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to put some of the packs that I won towards this exercise is, A, I like challenging myself to sort of unravel the puzzle of card evaluation and deck building in sort of wacky and strange ways, because it sort of helps me to think outside the box and look at cards that I might not otherwise look at. And also, I thought this would be entertaining. So, our Dragons pack has Aven Tactician, Hand of Silumgar, Screamreach Brawler, Zephyr Scribe, Segmented Krutik, Tail Slash, Defeat, okay, Reduce in Stature, Enduring Victory. Our first uncommon is Virulent Plague. We have a Dromoka's Gift, and Tarka Monument. We have a Boltwing Marauder as our rare. This is a 5/4 dragon with flying, costs 3 black-red, and says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So this is very good and limited. I don't know if we're going to be going black-red, although based on what we've seen so far, I think it's possible that that color combination could be fine, or at least black-green splashing red perhaps, although I don't really think we have much in the way of fixing. The last pack might change that. We have a foil uncommon. We have a foil Atarka Monument to go with the regular Atarka Monument that we got in this pack. So we have a foil Atarka Monument. That's pretty cool. We have a Swamp and an Add. All right, so this is sort of the most exciting pack here that we're opening on camera to use for this this seal deck. Obviously, we're opening a pack of Modern Masters 2015 edition. I opened a booster box of this recently. Go watch that video. It was a lot of fun to film. And I also did a pack 1 pick 1 draft analysis with a pack of Modern Masters 2015. So we're going to include a pack in this exercise as well. So we have an insect token. Nice. We have Kozilek's Predator, another thing that might push me towards the green route. Seems like we have a lot of good green creatures in this pool. Thief of Hope. We have Vapor Snag, Tarashi's Grasp, Scuttling Death, Stoic Rebuttal, Gnarlid Pack, Goblin Fireslinger, Aquastrand Spider, nice, Sphere of the Suns. So we do have some fixing or some ways to splash a card. There are a way at least with this if we don't use any others. We did get a Windscarred Crag in our cons pack, but our first uncommon here is a Water Serpent, followed by a Mutagenic Growth. Cool, that's cool. We've got a Dimir Guildmage. We have a Mythic. We have a Mythic rare out of our Modern Masters pack. Oh, it's a Bitter Blossom! Awesome! Oh man, this is super sweet. One of the decks that I'm building right now is an Anafenza the Foremost 10 liters mid-range deck, and one of the more expensive cards that I didn't have for that deck was Bitter Blossom until now. I was actually thinking of trading with someone I know to get one, but this is amazing. This also makes me think that the black green that we have in this pool is worth really heavily considering, as this is a crazy good card. It is a tribal enchantment fairy, so it counts as a fairy. Not that that'll really matter in the deck we're building here. It's a card that costs 1 and a black and says at the beginning of your upkeep you lose 1 life and put a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And yeah, this card, I'm not actually sure exactly what its TCG mid price is at the moment. I think it's somewhere in the 25 to 30 range. This is as of the weekend of GP Vegas, which is going on right now, but this makes me very happy. And we still have a foil in here. So is it something? It's a common. Oh baby! It's a foil Smash to Smithereens. That's one of the coolest common foils you could possibly acquire in this set. This is worth like $4 or $5. And, you know, I actually was drafting on this past Thursday with this set, and I picked up a foil Electrolyze, a foil Gut Shot, a Cryptic Command, but I passed on a foil Smash the Smithereens because there was something else in that pack that was just so good for the deck I was drafting that I'd already, you know, picked a bunch of cards worth some money and thought that I would just take that card to make the deck better because I wanted to have fun playing, you know, a good deck in the format. But later on I kind of regretted passing this because I really like foil burn spells and I want this in my collection, so it all worked out. Sweet. Oh boy, alright, that was really exciting. That was a really good pack of Modern Masters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a few minutes to look over the pool, and I'm either going to build one deck, or, you know, if a couple different things jump out, I might show you a couple different builds and discuss my thoughts. But we're going to come back and do that in a minute, and through the magic of video editing, it'll be in just a moment for you guys. Okay, so upon evaluating this pool, 3 possible builds jumped out at me, although really it's kind of like 2.5. And I say that because one of the builds is a slightly different version of the deck you see in front of you, and I'll discuss that version after I show the most. I feel like this deck that you see in front of you is the most straightforward, excuse me, of the builds that appeared to me when looking at this pool. One of them is kind of an extension of this deck with a bit of a splash for a third color, and then one of them is pretty much a straight 3-color deck that still has green as its base, though. Green to me stood out as clearly the deepest color in this pool when I was sorting out the cards. In fact, yeah, I can show you, just give me one moment here. I can show you guys what I the conclusion I came to. I looked at the white cards, and I kind of ruled white out. Sarah Avenger is good. Enduring Victory is pretty good. It's expensive, though. But from there, it's just kind of like a 2-drop that's double white, an expensive flyer, and some stuff that's like okay, definitely not terrible, a sideboard card, some stuff that's not that great. You know, it's just not deep. There's nothing that pulls me other than the Avenger, and that's not alone a reason that I'm going to play white, especially since it's a double white thing, although it's sort of mitigated by the fact that you can't cast it early. I'm going to save the red and the blue to talk about for the second sort of, I guess, the second deck, or at least the deck that's like not the 0.5 of this deck that you see in front of you here, because the third deck, or I guess, you know, it's like the, as I've said, the other distinct deck that I'll talk about is one that is Teamer Colors, because we have some fixing in this pool. But let's see, that being said, the deck you see in front of you is black and green. So what I wanted to do was to look at any possible synergies that I could find, even though I was, you know, unlikely to find too many super obvious ones, but also just kind of build based on the tenets of good limited strategy. Have a solid curve. You know, I have a lot of 2-drops in this deck. I have 16 creatures in this deck. There are removal spells. There are some synergies, and there are just some powerful cards. So this deck just seems like an all-around powerful, well-rounded deck that can sort of grind out a mid-range game the way that green-black typically can. So just to go over the card choices, as it might be kind of hard to see all these names on camera here. For 1-drops, I have Chronomaton, a Disentomb, since I have some creatures that I might want to get back, like for example, a creature with an enters the battlefield ability like Liliana's Spectre, and Mutagenic Growth as a surprise pump spell, since you can pay 2 life instead of mana to cast it. For the 2-drops here, for green I have Gnarlid Pack. Not exciting, but you know, a 2-drop that doesn't totally fall off in the late game. If you top deck it late. Aquastrand Spider, a pretty good 2-drop. Provoke, sort of serves the role of a removal spell. Elvish Visionary, a good early blocker that can draw you a card. Bitter Blossom, which is just a very powerful card, probably the most powerful card in the deck, and synergizes really nicely with 2 life linkers, which we'll get to in a moment. So Defeat is a way to remove an early creature. Hand of Silumgar, also, a good way to sort of bridge to your powerful late game because he has Death Touch and can block pretty much anything, and Debilitating Injury, which kills or debilitates a creature. So these 2-drops are either sort of value creatures, a powerful card like Bitter Blossom, or sort of ways to bridge to the mid game. And then we'll get to the 2 life linkers. So we have Daggerdrome Imp and Stonefair Crocodile here, and those creatures either have or can gain lifelink, and that kind of helps to mitigate the life loss from Bitter Blossom. So you're generating this army of fairies, and those creatures can help you to gain some life if the game stalls out. Assassinate, removal spell, and then Liliana Spectre, an evasive threat that forces your opponent to discard a card. You can often save her until later in the game to force them to discard a card later and make a tough choice when they only have a few cards, or maybe even only 1 card left in their hand. Over here we have another flyer, another evasive threat that comes back if it dies in Dark Revenant. Kozilek's Predator, which is a 3/3 that also gives you 2 Eldrazi spawn that can just block, or they can be used for mana, so they can be used maybe to help flip up your Woolly Loxodon or play 2 things in a turn. We have Primal Clay, powerful artifact that gives you many options. It can enter the battlefield as a 3/3, a 2/2 flyer, or a 1/6 wall with Defender. So kind of a versatile card that's good while developing, and also good potentially later in the game to help you hold off some attackers on the ground. You have a powerful pump spell. It's kind of expensive in Dramoka's Gift, but a powerful spell to make one of your small things like Liliana Spectre into a huge 6/5 flyer, or even one of your Bitter Blossom tokens into a 5/5 flyer all of a sudden. You've got a Charging Rhino and a Sentinel Spider just as good big creatures. In the case of the Spider with Vigilance and Reach, and in the case of the Rhino, it can't be blocked by more than 1 creature, so sometimes it kind of acts like a removal spell, or they want to double block to kill it, but they can't, obviously. So good big creatures. And then rounding out the good big creatures, we have these ones I kind of put up here, even though their mana cost isn't always what is printed on the top right corner, because Hooting Mandrills has Delve, a 4/4 trample, so if you delve away 5 cards from your graveyard, he'll cost 1, but he'll cost different amounts at different points when you cast him based on what's in your graveyard. And then Woolly Loxodon, and the Loxodon has more, so you can play it for 3 colorless as a 2/2, you can flip it up for 6, or you can just hard cast it for 7, so his sort of cost and situational use is variable. And so these 2 cards here aren't always just going to be the most expensive cards in your deck, but if cost for their printed converted mana cost, they'll cost 6 and 7 respectively, 6 for the Mandrills and 7 for the Loxodon. So I put them up here as expensive cards, but they're not always expensive cards. So really your curve kind of stops at 5, I guess 6 if you're going to flip up the Loxodon. But really, if you put the Loxodon as a 3 and the Mandrills as more regularly a 3 or a 4 drop, then your curve kind of stops at 5. So this is a 23 card group here, so 17 land would go into this deck. It's heavier on the green, but you do have a lot of black cards that you want to play early. I'd be putting this one Quicksand in. So 16 colored sources. You could go 9 and 7 or 10 and 6. I'd probably go 9 and 7. You do need double green for some of these cards, but they're more expensive, and none of your early drops need double green. One of your sort of early drops needs double black, but that's something you can sandbag for later. So I think going 9 and 7 would be totally fine. 9 forests, 7 swamps, and this one Quicksand to round out your lands. So that's deck build number 1, and I'll be right back to show you the version of this deck that splashes white. Alright, so I think that this version of the deck is a little bit more unfocused and higher variance, but this is a possibility and something that was worth discussing, although I think I would ultimately dismiss this in favor of the straight black-green deck. This version splashes white for Armament Core, Centaur Healer, and Selesnya Charm, and helps to accomplish this splash with a Sphere of the Suns, which can tap 3 times for any color of mana. I think I'd want to go with 18 lands, since this version, I feel like you could go with 17, but if you went with 17, I'd probably add this guy back in. If I went with 17, I'd probably go, it's tough because I want to go 9, 7, and 2, 9 forests, 7 swamps, and 2 plains, and then with the Sphere of the Suns, I'd have 10, 8, and 3 sources of those colors, and that seems okay 10 green sources, 8 black sources, 3 white sources seems fine. I don't know if the deck really needs 18 land in terms of land drawing frequency, but for that reason I'm kind of on the fence about whether this guy should be in here, because he is colorless, so it doesn't matter what colors of mana you... I mean, that's one reason I left Chronometon, is just like, these guys obviously work well in a 3-color deck because it doesn't matter what you use to cast them, white, black, or green. But if I'm going to add an 18th land, I take this guy out. If I'm going to subtract a land, I guess I'd subtract... I feel bad going to 8 forests, 8, 7, and 2. I took out the Liliana Spectre, so maybe I'd go to 9, 6, and 2. 6 black sources. We do need black kind of early, but we only need 1 basically for the entire game. So maybe that would be correct if we were to go that route. If we were to go 17 land, go 9 forests, 6 swamps, and 2 plains with this guy in here. And then we'd have 10, 7, and 3 of sources of our colors respectively. So I'll show you what I took out to make this change. I took out the Spectre because our mana is already kind of gross. We don't have fixing beyond the Sphere of the Suns, so I don't want a double black. Obviously we still have a couple of double green, but like the Loxodon can be flipped up for single green, and having 1 double green spell, since that's our main color, and the Sentinel Spider seems fine with me, and the Spider seems better than the Rhino, although that could be switched out in sideboard games. I mean, that's one of the reasons I took out Spectre and Rhino, is just the double mana cost. Also, I think of our 5-drops here, Armament Core and Sentinel Spider are better than the Rhino. I took out Dromoka's Gift. It does have some cool synergies with the fact that we're making 1/1 tokens, the fact that we have, you know, a small flyer and Daggerdrome Imp. It can all of a sudden make an Elvish Visionary a 5/5. It's kind of neat, but you know, sometimes we're gonna have a big creature that we would have rather made bigger, and it just doesn't let us choose to do that. I think it's a pretty powerful card, but cuts had to be made, and this is one of the cuts that I made. And I also cut Disentomb. It is cool to return something from your graveyard to your hand, but you know, we have a lot of creatures in this deck, and although this effect is powerful for 1 mana, and I could totally see bringing this in games where your opponent has a lot of removal or a lot of you know, blockers that stack up well against your creatures. This was one of the cuts that I made. I also cut Quicksand because we want all of our lands in this version to produce colored mana. But these are, you know, there are some cards here like you could bring in Disentomb against a removal heavy deck, and you could bring in Quicksand against a deck with a lot of small flyers. 2 other cards I want to mention that are kind of sideboard cards. Virulent Plague, great against creature tokens, but huge note, if you bring this in out of the sideboard, please take out Bitter Blossom. That is a non-bow. If you play Bitter Blossom on turn 2 and Virulent Plague on turn 3, your opponent will laugh at you. If you're going to bring this in because their deck is full of Raise the Alarms and other token producers, take out Bitter Blossom. And then Windstorm, pretty self-explanatory. It deals X damage to each creature with flying. You bring this in if they have a lot of creatures with flying. So those are sideboard cards. So that is the black-green, or in this case, the black-green splash white deck that jumped out at me. I think the black-green deck, just straight black-green, is more consistent and probably better. But there is one other interesting build that this pool supports, in my opinion, so I'm going to show that to you guys in just a moment, and then wrap this up. Alright, so this is the 3rd deck build that I mentioned, and, you know, as I looked over these more closely, I realized that I sort of ordered this portion of the video in order of which decks I like the best to least, which, you know, I think the black-green, the straight black-green deck is the strongest of the 3 that I'm showing you today. The one splashing white is an option, it's interesting. Selesnya Charm and Armament Core are cool. Are they powerful enough to destabilize the sort of streamlined nature of the first deck? Probably not, but it's something I would look at during the deck building process were this part of a tournament in this weird multi-pack format. This deck just stood out to me as interesting because we have some multicolor cards in this 3-color combination that are pretty cool, pretty powerful, but this deck has some problems, even though it also has some cool synergies and strengths. So this is a teamer deck, red, blue, and green. So first, some of the good things. This deck has multiple mana fixing sources. It has Sphere of the Suns, like fixing and ramp. So Sphere of the Suns gets you from 2 to 4 mana, and adds a color of any color of your choice to your mana pool. Teamer Banner gets you from 3 to 5, and adds any of your 3 colors. And the Atarka Monument also gets you from 3 to 5 and gets you red or green. So one of the problems is the main 2 colors here are green and blue, and 2 of your fixers get you red and green. Another problem with this being that getting from 3 to 5 is slightly problematic when your 3 might be a morph like Snowhorn Rider or Woolly Loxodon. Well, Loxodon flips up for 6, Rider flips up for 5, but if you play him on turn 3, you're not going Rider and then turn 4 flipping him up, because you didn't play a Banner or a Monument on turn 3 if you played the Rider on turn 3. So that's a bit awkward. We also have Kozilek's Predator as a ramp source, making Eldrazi spawn tokens that can ramp. You can sacrifice them for a colorless mana, and this deck is it's kind of mana hungry. I mean, obviously, it has some powerful, expensive things. Explosive Impact can finish a player off or can kill a creature. We don't have a lot of removal here, though. We have Tail Slash, which works well with our big creatures like Spider, Snowhorn, Niv-Mizzet, and Loxodon, Mandrills. I put these 3 cards over here because, like I said, with the Mandrills and Loxodon before, in this case with Treasure Cruise as well, cards that have versatility such as Morph or Delve with their printed cost. These are kind of like cards that aren't always going to cost their converted mana cost as printed on the card. So you might cast Treasure Cruise for 3, for 2, for 4. You might play Loxodon on turn 3 as a morph and flip him up, on turn 5 thanks to some ramp, thanks to like a Kozilek's Predator on turn 4 or whatever. So these cards are kind of hard to put in one specific spot on the curve. I mean, I guess that's true of Snowhorn Rider as well. He can be a 3 because he has morph. This deck is pretty mana intensive. You've got things like Niv-Mizzet that has double blue, double red, Teamer Ascendancy, and Snowhorn Rider that have all 3 colors. You've got a double colored thing in the Spider here. It's worth noting there are a lot of things in this deck that do trigger your Ascendancy for drawing a card. You have, in terms of 4 power creatures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a pretty decent number. It's worth noting that if you flip up a morph, though, it won't enter the battlefield, so you won't draw a card. So that's kind of awkward that 2 of your high power creatures can sort of work poorly with the Ascendancy. Like I said, this deck has some problems. I mean, Paralyzing Grasp is sort of a removal spell. I wanted to keep some early 2-drops. I wanted to keep sort of card draw and card filter in this deck when making cuts. So that's why things like Elvish Visionary, Provoke, and Zephyr Scribe stayed in, or at least that's part of the reason. But yeah, this deck seems like it can do some cool things, but it's going to be inconsistent. Would this be better than just the straight black-green deck? Probably not. Is this something I would consider during deck building? Because it is interesting and there are some compelling reasons to think about this deck, sure. It's definitely a deck that is less obvious than the black-green deck, and it was hard to make cuts. The final 2 cuts I made actually were Rewind and Force Away. Rewind, it's hard to say why, because these were tough cuts to make, but I just feel like I don't want to cut any of the creatures that are in there right now, because I already am dedicating so much space in this deck to, color fixing, ramp. There has to be some removal. I'd rather my removal be kind of a bit less sit around and wait than Rewind, even if you do get to untap 4 lands, and Force Away seems a bit worse than Vapor Snag. It's 1 more mana, and it's the Ferocious. Like I said, it's going to be turned on some of the time, but not all of the time. So I wouldn't evaluate this thinking that you're always going to have Ferocious in this deck. And then some other things that I considered here, because it's so color intensive, Primal Clay and Chronomaton are options. Water Servant is very blue intensive, but you could just play him as a 3/4 and activate him once or twice a turn and no more than that. Stasis Cell could come in certain matchups, but Paralyzing Grasp is cheaper, and I like that better in the main. Other options, for this deck include Pitchburn Devils, but I like some of our other 5s better, or other, expensive creatures better. Active Treason, but this deck isn't super aggressive. Scream Reach Brawler, this deck isn't super aggressive. I think Mutagenic Growth is probably a better trick in this deck because it can be essentially free. Wind Dancer might be nice. It might be nice against decks with a lot of blockers, a lot of ground creatures, because giving some of your big guys flying, giving a guy like Snowhorn Rider, or Kozilek's Predator, or Hooting Mandrills, or Woolly Lockstown. I mean, you have guys that are big, and they might have big guys that can block, even your trample guys. So this could be something to come in out of the sideboard in those kind of matchups. And then just a couple of other sideboard options over here. These are some of the red and blue cards that I didn't really consider for the main deck, but some of them are decent sideboard options. Other options: Chemister's Trick, Goblin Fire Slinger, Mana Geyser. None of these really jump out at me, but if your opponent has some sort of specific land that you want to destroy, there's Crater Eyes, some specific artifact that you want to destroy, or a couple of artifacts, or their deck is built around artifacts, Smash to Smithereens. They have a lot of small creatures. Volcanic Fallout is great. Same thing with Electrickery if they have a lot of 1 toughness creatures. You have Essence Scatter and Negate, so you can bring in whatever is appropriate in the matchup against a heavy creature deck. Essence Scatter against a more spell-based deck. Negate. Stoic Rebuttal is just kind of like a cancel, because we don't really have... Well, actually, we do have 4 artifacts, and we could put in the 2 artifacts, Primal Clay and Chronometon over here. So if we went that route and we had 6 artifacts, then that is enough to turn on the Metalcraft on Stoic Rebuttal. Is that enough reason to play it? Maybe, but that's something we could do. Doorkeeper is a good defender, and there are definitely options with this deck, but it seems to me when looking over this that there are going to be a lot of games where you just aren't fast enough, or you don't have the right pieces of what you need to curve out smoothly, or for this deck to just kind of execute its game plan in the face of some removal spells, or an aggressive deck, or a deck that is kind of going toe-to-toe with you in value. So I do think I like the black-green build that I showed first better, but this is certainly an interesting deck, and if anyone has reasons why they think they would play this deck, the Teamer deck, over that deck, please let me know what those are in the comments below, because I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion that you just say, well, black-green deck's better, I play that instead of this. I think there are some compelling reasons to play this deck. Like I said, I certainly would look at this deck in the deck building process. I'm glad that this pool supported the possibility for a deck like this, so we could talk about it. And this was a really fun exercise, so I'm glad that you guys stopped by to watch this. I hope that you got something out of this, either in terms of card evaluation, or deck building, or just sort of looking at cards under a different microscope, because of the way that these cards are sort of spread out across a lot of different sets. It's not often that you see Niv-Mizzet and Treasure Cruise and Sphere of the Suns in the same deck together in Limited. So that's pretty neat, and I hope that you guys will keep watching videos like this. If you like videos like this, please let me know, because I'd love to do more of these. These kind of wacky deck building videos are really fun for me, so don't hesitate to give me your feedback if you like them. Thank you guys. This is Italian Magic signing out.